can all agree, from just about every perspective, this year has been a difficult one, right? From the transition to online, which absolutely caught everybody off guard, to the new game mechanics. The list really kind of goes on when we talk about this year. It has been a grind. But often, when you do go through something difficult, you learn something, right? That's always the biggest conversation, right? The team that loses is the team that learns. And it's fair to say that teams and management have learned a lot in year one. I mean, to start the year, right, when we were kind of coming into this franchise league, there were a lot of unknowns in terms of what we were going to see, and many teams didn't really know exactly how things were going to fall into place, right? You had some franchises that did have a Call of Duty background. There were some that were also incredibly new to the space, right? You had some franchises that had no previous ties to Call of Duty, and they were relying on picking up the right pieces to carry them along the line, or rather to kind of carry them along the lines. The offseason, right, was a scramble. That was also a great introduction for a lot of these franchises, was the offseason scramble that we had. And I will tell you, never before have we seen a roster change period like that, or an offseason, I should say, like that, where nearly every single player was available. Not every single one of them, but nearly every player was in some ways available. It was chaos, but at the same time, from a fan's perspective, it was beautiful chaos. Also in year one, we saw teams make different approaches to things, right? First thing being substitutes. That was a big idea, right? Some teams signed more than others. One team signed an entire 10-man lineup. Some rosters didn't actually sign a legitimate substitute that wouldn't actually play. When it comes to staff, some teams signed multiple coaches and analysts. Some teams brought in hardly any. Player signings. Some teams went big and some teams went kind of the super team route. Other rosters decided to go for the cheaper option with some lesser known names that's less cost effective. This year was a balancing act, right? It was about trying to cater to cost while also trying to maintain competitive nature. And not only was it a learning experience for teams, but it was also a learning experience for players, right? Players coming into this year had no idea what to expect either, right? It was a matter of, am I going to get picked up? Which franchise is going to contact me? How do I work throughout these contracts? A majority of the players didn't have an agent until this offseason, right? Players have been learning bits of information progressively about each of these franchises. And I said to start the season, and I still share this kind of same feeling now with just champs remaining in the inaugural season of the CDL. Year one was about performing at events. It was not only about performing at events, but it was also about showcasing the culture that you have as a franchise, right? Year one for these teams was essentially an open house, right? The way that the team performs in year one, from a management perspective and even from a results perspective as well, sets them up nicely for the future, and in turn hurts the teams that did not showcase a great culture and that did not perform well in year one either. Setting up a positive and winning culture for a franchise is the key to becoming a future top destination. And the way that you leave a lasting impression on a lot of these players' minds is by how you'll be remembered coming into next season, which is going to be all around champs. Because I believe that we're going to have a very interesting shakeup. Right? This is kind of my prediction looking toward next year. Because based on what a lot of players have been talking about in terms of their contracts, what they've signed, a lot of them have basically said that they've signed 1+1 contracts. Well, what does that exactly mean? What that means is that when you sign with a franchise for a year, you then have the option in the second year to sign or to not sign. Basically, it gives the player some flexibility to either leave or become a free agent. There are a lot of other things that kind of come into it, but that is the general gist of it, if you will. Now, this kind of contract happens in regular sports as well, right? Traditionally, this is a great contract for a player, but when we talk about kind of year one, the decision, if you will, for different teams, it actually could in some ways be a good opportunity for teams as well to change things up. But listen here. I know how this esport works when it comes to roster moves, and odds are that you do too, right? You give a player an opportunity, and they probably will make something happen, right? If you give a player the opportunity after having maybe even an average year, a majority of them aren't going to be happy with that. So I'm not saying that we're going to have this unbelievable roster change period, but I think it is very fair to say if those contract rumors are true, there is a very good chance that we see a lot of teams try and change up. And where do they want to go? They want to go to the teams that saw success this year. They want to go to the teams that had a great culture this season. And as I've said previously, kind of getting back to that NBA conversation, Call of Duty is like the NBA in many ways. And much like the NBA, a lot of players who do play basketball professionally are of the mindset of now super teams, right? This idea of getting as many top players together as you can and really just trying to dominate based on the level of talent that you possess. A lot of guys are going to be under that impression for next year, as they were coming into this year, right? With the addition of 5v5 coming into Black Ops 4, it was all about this notion of what? The big three, right? The big three players that you have to headline the team. You got the two members of the supporting cast. That's the way that it has rocked for a long time. Now, the reason why we're having this conversation, the reason why I believe it is important to talk about this right now is because not only does champs mean a lot for the players, right? Based off of their notoriety, based off of what it means for kind of their legacy, what it means for even their bank account, but more than ever, winning impacts the teams, right? It impacts the franchise teams that are a part of the league. Now listen, out of the 7 teams that have previously won a Call of Duty World Championship, only 2 of them made it to franchising. Out of the 7 teams that have won a Call of Duty World Championship, 4 of them were gone the very next season. You basically have a report card now as a franchise, right? Because you are held to a certain standard now being in the CDL, and more than we've ever seen. This Call of Duty World Championship to end the first season will have a major impact on the forward looking for the rest of these franchises, right? This is a big deal for a lot of these teams. And so it is now more interesting than ever in my eyes, because now we are going to have franchises that we know we can rely on to be here for years to come. And that is going to impact them as well. So when you're watching the Call of Duty World Championship, right, the 8th that we've ever had, the first in the CDL, be mindful that not only does this impact the players, but now more than ever, it also impacts the teams and impacts the franchises who are going to be here long term. Every one of these results going on are going to have dramatic repercussions, both positive and negative for the teams that, like I said, are now fully invested.